Hi and welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you decided to click on this video because boy am I excited. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I just noticed like 2.5 seconds ago that I can't stop with the hand gestures, so I'm super sorry if that's distracting for you. I genuinely don't think I can contain myself. Anyway, before we even get started on today's topic, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe before you even continue in this video. Just do it. Why not? What's the harm? Just do it. Well, today I'm gonna be talking to you guys about my all-time favorite book. So I'm talking to you guys about my 5-star reads, okay? So usually you'll see people rate their books 1 to 5 and everywhere in between. So I do this, I do rate every single book that I read. I rate them on Goodreads, and I usually do just like a short review, but I rarely ever give 5 stars unless the book has completely blown my mind in every which way, left, right, up, down, okay? I'm gonna talk to you guys about my 5-star reads. So let's get into it. The first book I've actually never talked about on this channel, and I'm pretty excited to, but that book is Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. I read this book probably about 5-6 years ago. I was away at summer camp and my friend, her name was Sloan, she introduced me to this book and I bought it that day that she talked about it and I read it that day. And I mean, this book is, beaten up, but this book is huge. And it is still one of the greatest books I've ever read. This book is written by a Christian author, and this book is basically like a huge allegory for the book of Hosea in the Bible. It is about this man named Michael Hosea, and he is like, a God-fearing man. This is all set in the 1850s era and it's in California, so people are out looking for gold and just stuff like that. So honestly, it is kind of a little bit, I think, like historical fiction, and it's also romance, but it's also like a Christian book. But you don't necessarily have to be a Christian to enjoy this book. Angel, your main heroine of the story, she was basically forced into prostitution and she just feels completely stuck there. She's forgotten about her entire past life and she has no hope. She's lost every ounce of hope that she's ever had. She knows that she's stuck in this life under this awful woman who is basically forcing her to do all these things for men. And then all of a sudden she's walking down the street and Michael Hosea sees her and he literally hears God's voice and God is saying, "That's your wife?" And he's like, "That's a prostitute, no." But it's basically just an entire story of how Michael Hosea just continues to pursue Angel, no matter how much she just is so blind to hope. She doesn't have anything left. She feels comfortable now in prostitution, so she's constantly trying to find her way back to it because that's what she knows. It is very interesting, and I do love it so much. And honestly, when I read this book 5 or 6 years ago, I think this book was a huge catalyst to getting me back into reading, because back then I had taken a huge break. I didn't really read that often, but I do think that this book helped me kind of reestablish me in loving to read. So I definitely recommend this book. This is 100% a 5-star read for me. Hi, I'm sure that this is a lovely view, but I wanted to just hop in here real quick because I forgot to say this while I was filming, but check all of these books for trigger warnings. Do not just go into them, especially Redeeming Love, until you look up trigger warnings. Okay, so my next book is probably the book that's most talked about on my channel, because I love it so much, but I reread the series 2 weeks ago, so it's all very fresh on my mind and I just had to mention it. I'm not going to talk about it for very long, but you need to know it is one. If I could have given it 100 stars. I would have. Like, this book is so good. And that is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. And hear me, like, this is the last book in the series, so like you cannot just jump into this book. And the rest of the series, I think I only gave 5 stars to one other book in the series, and I think it was Empire of Storms. I think so, but every other book either got 3 stars or they got 4 stars. All of the books were very, very good, but this book was just so perfectly done for its finale. Like, it was just wrapped up in a beautiful bow, and everyone's stories were, I mean, they were just finished so well. Like, I didn't have any questions. Like, I just got closure. I got the closure that I needed to, and I feel like I really miss these characters so often that I do have to reread it occasionally. And like, I don't like reread it because like she's 1,000 pages. I don't reread it like that, you know. I've tabbed it, so like I know where important things are in the story and things that I like. So usually if I go back for a reread, it's just like a skim, and I just read the parts that I know that I like. I don't know if anyone else does that, but some people make me feel really weird about it. But yes, I do love this book. This book made me cry so much. It made me laugh. The relationships in here are absolutely beautiful, and they're not rushed. Like, some of these relationships took the entire series to build. Like, Aelin and Rowan didn't even meet until like the 3rd book, and they hated each other. And so just seeing them in this book and just kind of comparing to their growth, but then also like Aedion and Lysandra, like you see their relationship grow, and it is literally so beautiful. And then you see, I think it's Manon. That's how I pronounce it in my head when I'm reading. Manon and her 13, and her relationship with Abraxas. Like, I just love it. Like, it's so beautiful. But then also, like, these characters are struggling with like real life things like guilt and depression and anxiety, and you see survivor's guilt a lot in here. And I don't know, it's just really cool to see those things like played out in such a fantastical world, because those are things that we easily relate with. But I'm just never bored. I'm never bored reading this series, and I just can't recommend it enough. But yes, Kingdom of Ash, which is the last book, is 100% a 5-star. So the next book was honestly quite a surprise for me that I gave it 5 stars. I was just pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it, because I just thought it was gonna be like a really like light romance book, and I was just like reading it to fill time so I didn't have to think so much, because I think I read it right after I read another fantasy book, so I just wanted something light, and this wasn't light at all. But it was so good, and that is From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. I just genuinely was so surprised by this book. Like, it was so well written, and it was definitely a slow burn, okay? Like, these characters did not admit to their feelings until like the last 50 pages. Like, oh my gosh, I was super annoyed, but it all worked out, and I loved it so much. The reason that I loved this book so much is because my favorite movies growing up were those cutting edge movies, and they were about figure skating, and you know, the couples and, you know, the girls kind of like, this is like my last chance, like, and then they get invited to skate with this guy, and he's usually kind of like a jerk. And you know, it's just that trope, and we love that. We love that trope. We don't have to think about it because we know how it's gonna end, and it all works out. But this was just so well done. Like, I just wasn't prepared for it. It was beautifully written. I was not prepared to cry like I did, and I cried, okay? So we follow this girl, her name is Jasmine, and she is a figure skater, and she's kind of like on her, what she thinks, she's kind of old in the game. She hasn't won any championships, she hasn't won anything, and if she does win, it's always second place to our main guy. His name is Ivan. Jasmine kind of doesn't know whether or not she wants to continue in skating or just to give it up and quit, okay? And then Ivan invites her into a meeting, and obviously they're like, hey, we need a partner for Ivan because his partner got injured or something like that. At least that's the story they told her. His partner got injured and he's looking for a last minute partner. So Jasmine, who funny enough, Jasmine's best friend is actually Ivan's sister. So Jasmine and Ivan have grown up together skating. So they do know each other very well, but from what it seems like, there's just like a massive miscommunication or just not communicating of feelings. This is definitely like enemies to lovers, slow burn. So like if you love those tropes, you're gonna love this book. I can guarantee it. It's just really, really beautiful. And you start to see that like Ivan is not intimidating at all. He's not mean, or he's not like the guy that Jasmine thinks that he is. He's actually very, very sweet, and he cares about her so much, and he just doesn't know how to communicate. And it's just so beautiful, and I just was pleasantly surprised by this book. Yes, 5 stars. All right, my next 5-star read is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. I tell you what, this book was absolutely breathtaking. It was so well done. So you are following this girl named Macy and this boy named Elliot, and they meet each other at a really young age. Macy and her dad buy this vacation house because of something that happened with their mom. And sometimes they just need to get away. And who lives next door to this vacation house other than this boy named Elliot? Macy and Elliot just form this beautiful bond at childhood. They just have such a beautiful friendship. Like, that's how it starts. They start as really, really good friends. The thing that I love most about this book, and I usually love about books that do this, is that they give you present time, and then they give you past. So, and you're reading back and forth. So one chapter will be the past and then one will be the present. So when you're reading the past, you're reading when Macy moves into this neighborhood, and she's going there like every other weekend. And then you are going into the present time, and they have not talked for years. Something had happened and you don't know what it is until the very end. But Macy just leaves and does not say anything to Elliot. So what happens when she runs into Elliot at this coffee shop after a decade of no communication whatsoever? Absolutely none. And Elliot's like trying to figure it out, and Elliot is so clearly still in love with Macy, but Macy is engaged to another man. So you just kind of see everything start to make sense, and you see that Elliot is trying to understand so much about what happened and why Macy just cut him out of her life. And it is just absolutely beautiful. This is, if you're looking for a trope, this would probably fall under like friends to lovers, which is cute. That's always cute. That's probably one of my favorite tropes. My next book, I'm really on a romance roll here. I don't know what the deal is. But my next book is November 9 by Colleen Hoover. Wow, was not expecting this. And this is actually probably, just looking, if you just look at the cover, like this was the Colleen Hoover book that I was least excited to read. But then I forced myself one night and I just read it all then. I just read it in one night because it was so good. And it was pretty easy, like it's a pretty thin book. So it's a very, very quick read, which I love. But it is so cool how it's written. And just like the entire concept, the concept of the plot is just really interesting to me. So there's this girl named Fallon, and she was in an accident with fire. Her father was there, and because of that, she has permanent scarring on her face. Fallon wanted to be an actress, and because of the scarring on her face, her dad is constantly trying to push her into other directions. So they do not have a great relationship, so to speak. So Fallon and her dad were talking in this restaurant, and he was just being kind of not the greatest. And this is where Fallon meets Ben. Ben was sitting at the other table and could hear the entire conversation just about, you know, Fallon's dad like passive aggressively kind of putting her down, and Ben just kind of slides into the booth with her and pretends to be her boyfriend. And they just kind of hit it off, and they talk with the dad, and everything settles. Fallon's dad has to leave, and she's just kind of like, what? They spend the whole day together, and then they have to go their separate ways. So they decide, hey, next year on November 9th, let's meet again and see where we are. Because they obviously have such great chemistry, they do decide to meet every single year on November 9th. And I mean, you go through, I think, at least 5 years of them meeting on November 9th every year. You just see their ups and downs. And then there is a giant plot twist in this book. A plot twist I was not expecting, and it just throws you for a loop, and you're like, what even is this book about? It was just so cool. I just wasn't expecting it, and I like that. Like I like going into a book and not expecting this kind of plot twist, because even reading the synopsis, I could never have guessed what happened and what went on. All right, my last book, and which I'm so excited about. I'm actually in the middle of this series, so I have not finished the series. But I can already tell you that the first book was a 5-star for me. I absolutely loved it, and I definitely have talked about it before, but I just think kind of in passing. But it is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This book was so cool. Like, I'd never read a fantasy book quite like this. I think what attributed to that was just the explanation of the magic system. It was just the coolest I'd ever read. Like, I haven't read a magic system quite like this. So this is an urban fantasy because it takes place in like futuristic London. I think it was like 2065 or something. That could be wrong, but definitely 2060 something. I guarantee this will not be a 5-star for everyone, because there is so much world building, because it has to set up this huge world and how the magic system works, because it's so intricate and different, and there's different kinds of magics that have to be explained, and different kinds of people and different kinds of hierarchy, because it's not just a magic system, it's an entire hierarchy in each city, because we're not just in one city, we're in multiple cities. So this story follows Paige Mahoney, who is what's called a dream walker, and they call her the Pale Dreamer. And she's very powerful, but she leads 2 separate lives. Her father is just your average run-of-the-mill human, okay? And the human race has targeted these people that use magic, and basically it's a felony, and they can be thrown into prison, which is like the last place anyone wants to be. It's horrific there, and it's just a lot of prejudice in this book against magic users. So the fact that Paige's dad is a human and is basically wanting everyone that uses magic to go to these prisons, she has a hard time just kind of having that relationship with him anymore, because there was a time where she had a great relationship with him, and then she found out she could do these incredible things, and it kind of caused a divide in their relationship because he does not know. And she has this other complete different life in this magic world, where she's basically kind of like, we'll call it second in command in her city of magic users. She's basically what I would call an enforcer for this gang that she's in, just because of the powers that she has. Well, funny enough, that Paige one night is actually abducted by these crazy, like, honestly, just like otherworldly beings, and it's insane. So while Paige is at this camp, everyone that's a voyant, who is what they call the people that that had the ability to use magic. They're called voyants. And they're basically forced into slavery for these people that oversee the camp. Paige and every other voyant is basically assigned to this leader in this otherworldly group that run this camp. I mean, they're very weird. They're kind of like, how they're described is almost like alien-like, but she is assigned to this man named Warden, which is suspicious because Warden has never taken a slave, and he is the fiance of the woman who is literally evil. She's evil. She's crazy. I think her name's Nashira. Something or other. But she's awful. He doesn't talk much. He's very brooding. And he's super like cruel to Paige at first. But not in the way that the other overseers are cruel to their slaves. Because there's like, people are like getting beat up, people are dying, but like he never lays a hand on her, and she just doesn't understand why. And she's trying to escape, obviously. She's trying to figure him out, but like he helps her in ways that she never expected. And there just is a very beautiful but necessary bond that happens between the two of them. And you just find out so much about him and so much about his past, and that everything's not what it seems, because he is actually just as much of a captive as Paige is. Well, that's all that I have for you today. I'm so happy that you guys decided to watch this video, and I definitely hope that you get to reading on those recommendations. If you guys want to talk about your 5 stars in the comments below, go ahead and do that. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, and if you guys have any recommendations for me, you know I'm down to read them. But thank you guys so much. Goodbye!